gallery. Welcome you to the Shire's Ordinary Council meeting being held on Monday, the 17th of April 2023 in the Council Chambers, Civic Centre at 6 Patterson Street, Mundijong. I declare this meeting open at 7:01 p.m. and would like to acknowledge that this meeting is being held on the traditional land of the Noongar people, and we pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to advise members of the public gallery that this meeting is being audio recorded in accordance with council policy. If you are asking a public question or making a statement or deputation to the meeting, this will be audio recorded. Members of the public are reminded that no other visual or audio recording of this meeting by any other means is allowed. Item 1 on tonight's agenda is attendances and apologies. We have 2 apologies this evening, the first from Councillor Morgan Bias and the second from Councillor Lauren Strange. Item 2 is public question time. 2.1 is response to previous public questions taken on notice. As you will see, they are in the agenda and will be printed in the minutes from this meeting. Item 2.2 is public questions. Could I please ask Mr. Matt Linear to please come forward and ask your questions this evening?
Thank you, Madam President. Not too many people get that one. Lanternia. Question 1. Why hasn't recruitment occurred to fill the 2 full-time youth work positions that became vacant late December of 2022?
I will ask the Director of Community Engagement, the Chief Executive Officer, to respond to your first question this evening.
Thanks, Mr. Lanter, for the question. When both youth staff members left at the end of last year, I asked that a review be undertaken to see if the services we're providing and the staffing structure was appropriate to meet the needs of young people and manage risk within budget allocations. This review was finalised in March 2023. Furthermore, I've been reviewing the replacement of each vacant position in light of cost increases being faced by the Shire and the ability to keep rate rises to a minimum in the upcoming budget at this time, with high cost of living pressures on ratepayers. The financial challenges and potential rate rises were discussed with councillors in late March. Following both the review being completed and the budget discussions occurring with councillors, I approved the recruitment of the 2 roles in early April, and so advertising for these roles should be occurring this week.
Thank you. Why at the special council meeting on 25th of July 2022 did council reduce youth facility critical safety upgrades from $101,000 to $21,682, a cut of $79,318?
Thank you for your second question this evening. I will ask the Director of Community Engagement to respond to your second question.
This was one of the amendments that Council made to the 2022-23 budget to adopt a balanced budget in line with the proposed rate increases. Council also resolved for the Chief Executive Officer to prepare a costed plan for the Youth Services critical safety upgrades and facilities planning. The review of the Youth Services team and programming identified the Briggs Park Pavilion is not suitably designed for youth programming or fit for purpose, and a business case for the critical safety upgrades and facilities planning has been developed as per Council's resolution at the 25 July 2022 Special Council meeting. This business case has been submitted as part of the Shire's 23-24 budget process and will be considered alongside other facility renewal requests.
Thank you. Question 3. Will the council honour their commitment from the 25th of July 2022 Special Council meeting to retain existing staffing levels as of July 2022 and provide $250,000 for additional casual wages to ensure sufficient staffing levels to meet increasing demands for youth service provisions?
Thank you for your third question. I will ask the Director of Community Engagement to respond to your third question this evening. Thank you.
At the 25 July 22 special council meeting, council considered a request by the administration to create a senior youth development officer position and 2 permanent part-time positions, which equates to a 1.23 FTE. This request was not supported by council to achieve a balanced budget. However, council resolved to retain existing staff levels for the youth services team, which was 2 full-time FTEs, and provide an additional $25,000 for casual wages within the youth services team budget, taking the total casual budget allocation to $62,000 for the 22-23 financial year. There are no proposed changes to the July 2022 staffing levels for the youth services team at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please ask Mr. Michael Van Dendel to come forward and ask your questions this evening?
Good evening, Madam President, fellow reps and councillors. 3 questions. Question 1. Are you able to please provide information re your response to the federal government seeing as we are now in April 2023? If you have not received any, have you as Shire been active in following the matter?
Thank you for your first question. I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure for a response, please.
Through you, Madam President. Thank you for the question. In February 2023, the Shire was advised that the funding applications for both the Adonis Street and Richardson Street footpaths were unsuccessful in receiving funding. The feedback provided to the Shire by the funding body, Western Australia Park Networks Grant, was as follows. The 2022 program intake was highly competitive with many quality applications. While your application was deemed eligible, unfortunately, it did not fall within the available funding allocation, and we cannot offer you funding at this time. Your application will be placed in the reserve list for consideration if additional program funding becomes available. Importantly, please note this does not guarantee a future funding offer.
Second question is, could some clarity please be provided for statement 2 from the letter received on 7th of November 2022, which quotes as following: requests the Chief Executive Officer to prepare a business case for funding consideration at each stage of a future budgeting process by council. And has this been happening?
Thank you for your second question. I'll ask the Director of Infrastructures to respond to your second question this evening, please.
Yes, 2 business cases have been prepared for funding these projects and submitted for consideration by Executive and Council as part of the Shire's 2023-24 budget. One application is prepared for Adonis Street at a cost of $153,830, and another one for Richardson Street at a cost of $195,143. The outcome of these business cases will be determined through the budget approval process.
My third question would be, would the SJ Shire consider placing a portion or maybe the entire project of the footpath on the upcoming budget year?
Thank you for your third question. I'll ask the Director of Infrastructure Services to respond, please.
Business cases have been submitted for funding and construction of these footpaths during 2023-24 financial year. The business cases will be assessed with the rest of the capital projects business cases for the Shire as part of the 2023-24 budget approval process, and the outcome will be determined by Council when the budget is adopted. Prefer also to answer the question 2 above.
Thank you. Can I please ask Mrs. Lee Bond to come forward and ask your questions this evening?
Council election. For example, who will be overseeing the cost of that all the time?
Thank you for your first question this evening, Mrs. Bond. I'll ask the Director of Corporate Services to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, Mrs. Bond. At this evening's meeting, Council has the opportunity to consider the arrangements for the October 23 ordinary local government election, including the preferred method of conducting the election and who will be conducting the election. The provisions concerning the security of the ballot boxes dealt with in Regulations 59, 76 and 77 of the Local Government Election Regulations 1997. In the event that the 23 ordinary local government election is conducted as a voting in person method, Regulation 59 provides that the returning officer is to make sure that any ballot box into which early votes are put is supervised or otherwise secured at all times. In the case of both postal and in-person voting elections, Regulation 76 states that before a ballot box is used to take ballot papers or envelopes, the returning officer is to satisfy themselves that it is empty and then secure it with a security device in a way that ensures that nothing can be removed from it without breaking the security device. Likewise, Regulation 77 goes on to state that ballot boxes that are used on election day are to be displayed and secured under Regulation 76(4) in the presence of any electoral officers and scrutineers present. At the close of the poll at a polling place, the presiding officer is to secure each ballot box used at the polling place by sealing the box with a security device that will break on being opened and deliver the ballot boxes as soon as possible to a place as directed by the returning officer. Officers are recommending that the Western Australian Electoral Commission is appointed to conduct the 23 ordinary local government election and function as the returning officer. Depending on the Council's resolution on the matter, officers will be working with the returning officer on the detailed logistics associated with the election in the coming weeks and months to ensure its success.
There can be no ignorance in the ballot counting room at the upcoming council elections. The council provided complaint forms for scrutineers and other workers in that room, should they believe there is reason for a complaint, the returning officer before the election is declared, and the returning officer make an announcement to this effect before calling the election.
Thank you for your second question this evening, Mrs. Bond. I will ask the Director of Corporate Services to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Again, officers are recommending that the West Australian Electoral Commission is appointed to conduct the 23 ordinary local government election and function as a returning officer. If Council agree with this recommendation, the form in which complaints on election night will be received will be a matter for the returning officer independent of Council. This would be consistent with the provisions of Regulation 71 and 72 of the Local Government Election Regulations, which relate to the rights and restrictions of scrutineers. Just had to turn the page. That's okay. The West Australian Electoral Commission guidance material related to scrutineers provides that all inquiries go to the returning officer. At most elections, these inquiries relate to the formality of ballot papers and are resolved quickly in a discussion between the scrutineer and returning officer. In managing complaints on the evening, the returning officer also has the experience and expertise of the experts at the Western Australian Electoral Commission who conduct more than 80 local government elections on behalf of the sector each election cycle. Within 14 days of the declaration of the result, Section 4.79 of the Local Government Act 1995 requires the returning officer to prepare a report for the Minister on the conduct of the election. Now, complaints can be derived from many motivations and should not derail the announcement of an election result. Anybody wishing to contest an election result has other avenues in legislation.
When is council going to make a decent decision on the control of cats in the Shire? Keeping them restrained in the owner's home or a special cat run. Sterilisation, bells and microchips do not stop a cat killing for fun.
Thank you for your third question this evening, Mrs. Bond. I will ask the Director of Development Services to respond, please.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the question. A local government's power to make a local law pertaining to the control of cats is limited by the Cat Act 2011 and associated regulations. At the March 2023 meeting, Council resolved to make a draft cat local law, which has a purpose to provide and update relevant management and enforcement processes in respect to the keeping and control of cats and cat facilities within the Shire, in accordance with Council's decisions and the processes of local lawmaking under the Local Government Act. This will be given public notice whereby submissions will be invited on the draft local law from the community. In terms of cat control, the draft local law proposes the introduction of controls to prohibit cats in environmentally sensitive public places, particularly conservation reserves and the state forests. These are areas listed in the draft local law. While the draft local law is not able to prohibit cat ownership, it does propose to introduce heightened controls and associated enforcement penalties as a result.
Thank you, Mrs. Bond. Can I please ask Miss Pauline Holmes to come forward and ask your questions this evening?
Page 4 of the Shire Code of Conduct, councillors, committee members and candidates states confidentiality and allegations of an alleged breach must not be disclosed unless it is for purposes dealing with the complaint or otherwise in accordance with legislation in this code. In accordance with S5.232F, the meeting the matter is to be discussed is to be closed to the public as it could reasonably be expected to impair the effectiveness of any lawful method or procedure for preventing, detecting, investigating or dealing with any contravention or possible contravention of the law. When council has found that a breach has occurred, it may, under regulation 29A of the local government administration regulations 1996, resolve the completed complaint form and response form be made available for public inspection by including them as attachments to the minutes of the meeting. So question 1, where is the integrity of process for the item 10.6.1 confidential allegations of breach of code of conduct SJ 2023-1 or SJ 3105 on tonight's agenda when confidential information has been disclosed to Facebook on the Real Open community page on the 21st of March 2023 by Mrs. Lou Bond.
Thank you for your first question this evening, Ms. Holmes. I will ask the Chief Executive Officer to respond to your first question. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Thanks for the question. Madam President, I'd like to take that question on notice, if I may.
Thank you. A response in writing will be forwarded to you, Ms. Holmes.
Second question, what avenue is available to residents when we find select elected members are working with Facebook trolls to undermine our council and Shire for personal political gain and trying to destroy the reputation and standing of other elected members?
Thank you for your second question this evening. Ms. Holmes, I will ask the Chief Executive Officer to respond, please.
Madam President, I'd like to take that question on notice as well, if I may.
Thank you. A written response will be provided to you, Ms. Holmes. Item 3 on tonight's agenda is public statement time. Under the Local Government Act, we are to allow 15 minutes of public question time. We have reached 20 minutes this evening for public question time, so we move on to the next item, which is public statement time.
We are not allowed to ask all questions during this month.
It's great questions to ask. I believe it's in the best interest of the Shire and the people on certain times to allow us, because this protocol is about committee is more than allow people to have something. We'll have something to say, and we have 3 questions to put forward to you, and I appreciate some consideration.
Please ask why they were not submitted in writing as per the
And if you can show me what that says, we are governed by having to write our submission down. You have to just have a look at it, but I have found that I've read the whole law over and over, I've got to be with you, and it doesn't say that we do need to submit anything in writing prior to one of these meetings, because it gives us an unfair advantage to be able to speak freely, because if we write down too early, you guys have hours and hours to go through legal channels, and it makes us feel inferior that we're not going to answer correctly on the line. It feels like we pre-set up every answer to everybody's question to make it run smoothly. And I feel that this is an injustice in the property. We should be allowed to speak when our turn is done. If we submit on the line and I submitted at the end of that period, just then we did say they're closed from public questioning. So we are now asking, can they come out, please?
I take offence to what you have stated, that our officers use the time with submitted questions to give answers, to give people the runaround and make our community feel inferior. That time is used to be able to provide questions that answer what our community members have submitted and what they have asked. It is in no way there to make our community feel inferior to anybody. I will allow your questions, but please be advised that there is all likelihood they will be taken on notice, given that we don't know what they are and we do not have all of the answers here tonight. Thank you. Can you please come forward and ask your questions, and can you please state your name for the minutes?
My name is Leanne Schneider, and this is my husband, Stephen Schneider, and we're residents of Serpentine Jarrahdale Shire.
Can I please stop you right there? I do have you both listed to make a deputation after public statement time this evening. Is this part of the deputation, or is this?
Not understanding that we've not been through this process before. I was advised that my husband wouldn't be allowed to speak on my behalf or on behalf of both of us, because all the documentation coming from the Shire only comes to me. So that was our understanding, as we were advised by the council officers that he had to put in writing that he had to be a deputy at my.
I approved a request for you both to make a deputation at tonight's meeting. The deputation can run up to 15 minutes and it can have more than one speaker, and I approved that deputation last Friday for you both to be able to speak here during the deputation period of the agenda. So would you prefer to speak now, or do you want to wait for the deputation? So this is your deputation?
We're new to this, we're not sure what the right to do. Do you want us to ask the 3 questions, or do you want us to give us the reason why we're asking the 3 questions?
Public statement time is for members of the public to ask questions. Public statement time is for members of the public to make a public statement. Deputation time, or petition and deputation time, is for petitions or deputations to be made to council. The request I received was for yourselves to make a deputation to council, which is basically an extended statement putting forward your position.
Ask the 3 questions. What comes up, we can grab the deputation.
Yes.
Yep, okay, so question number one. When was the Serpentine Jarrahdale Shire town planning scheme changed relating to the distance that now allows further projections building entirely outside of the building envelope in the Claremorris Estate in Darling Downs as per a planning application PA 23-94? Current submission for proposed outbuilding lot 601 of 142 Bruns Drive, Darling Downs has been submitted to be entirely outside of the building envelope.
We take that on notice, please, so that the director has time to research and give you a correct answer.
Question number two, why are you, the council, considering approving the submission, PA 2394, for a property outbuilding to be erected facing north and south, which will detract from the streetscape and visual amenity of neighbouring residents in the Claremorris Estate on lot 601, 142 Bruns Drive, Darling Downs, the exact same position that we applied for in 2010 and were denied on multiple applications when all adjoining neighbouring properties, outbuildings, have only been approved as facing east and west.
We'll take that on notice as well, thank you.
Manager of Statutory Planning and Compliance, Mr. Ashwin Mayor, has advised us by email that every building application received by the Serpentine Jarrahdale Shire processed on individual merit. Can you please advise why some applications are approved on merit alone and without further consultation, as our applications were disapproved on multiple occasions for building outside the building envelope stated by the council, location shed to be relocated to minimise any projections beyond the building envelope, as per the Town Council Planning Scheme laws and guidelines.
Also take your third question on notice and a written response will be provided to you.
Madam President, could I just ask that the people provide us the written comments of the questions so we can record them accurately in the minutes? If that's okay, if you're happy to give them to the Manager of Governance.
Item 3 on tonight's agenda is public statement time. Can I please ask Mr. Matt Lanturnia to please come forward and read your statement this evening?
Thank you, Madam President, and well done. Good evening, everyone. Happy Youth Week. Becoming with others we dream. This year's theme focuses on how young people can dream themselves a better world, no matter how big or small, and then use their skills, love, care, and knowledge to bring others up with them to help realise it. Actions and achievements of the individual are nothing without the context of their community. I must respectfully acknowledge that the Shire is hosting a Youth Week event, Youth Fest. However, I note the absence of youth workers. And remember, young people deserve great youth workers. I am concerned that with the increasing demand for youth services within our community, that the Shire is yet to recruit for the 2 youth worker positions who resigned over the Christmas period. I am led to believe that recruitment has been delayed due to previous safety concerns for staff at the Briggs Park Pavilion Youth Centre. I am further concerned that critical safety upgrades of $101,000 were reduced to $21,682 and pushed back the council consideration until the 2023-24 budget. I really hope this doesn't mean we will have no direct youth service provisions until the next budget. I have also had several conversations with councillors and reflected on previous council minutes. That information, coupled with the delay of recruitment for youth workers, staff leaving the Shire with no qualified youth workers for the last 4 months, would allude that that youth services are not a priority of the current council. I am led to believe there is an idea by some council staff that critical youth services are unnecessary to the community's needs based on the interpretation of recent community surveys. As a professional that works in this space, and having worked with the Shire's previous youth team, as well as being part of the SJ Community Youth Resilient Network, I would argue that the community surveys have not captured the needs of our young people. I urge councillors and council staff to make themselves aware of the work the outgoing youth development officers and SJ Youth Community Resilience Network have conducted, including 1, the Youth Space Survey report, 2, the Mission Australia Youth Survey Report 2021, Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale Region Specific, and 3, the Peel Away the Mask 3 report, before making any decisions regarding youth services. From that report, the top 3 issues of personal concern to young people in the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale region were 1, coping with stress. The WA percentage for that was 40.1%, whereas the SJ's average percentage was 55.8%. Number 2, mental health. The WA average being 38.4% and the Shire of SJ's average 50.4%. Number 3, school or study problems. The WA average being 35.9% and the SJ average being 44.5%. The 2023 Mission Australia Youth Survey will be running again later this year. It will be interesting to compare the data once that becomes available. In addition to the critical safety upgrade budget cuts, I am extremely concerned that the advice to council is that the organisation is taking a cautious approach to recruitment and that council will have to consider possibly not replacing critical youth service vacancies in the upcoming budget process, factoring increases in fixed costs, high inflation and a limited rate rise. Youth services are a critical service area and by having no direct service provisions puts extreme added pressure on the very limited services we have in our Shire. Ultimately, this increases a high level of risk to our young people, including antisocial behaviour, alcohol and drug use, increased mental health issues and episodes, homelessness, sleeping at the youth pavilion and skate park, and suicide. And I spoke to Councillor Coles at the last Shire meeting because we had 6 young people as of the last Shire meeting that were sleeping rough at the pavilion. I need to remind the council that it was not that long ago that the community lost a young man and that service provisions, including the SJ Youth Community Resilient Network, extra funding, staffing and programs were put in place to reduce this risk. To now have a significant reduction to no service at all at a time when community pressures are only rising is extremely irresponsible of council. I urge councillors to work with the Shire officers and external professional bodies such as Youth Work WA to expedite the recruitment of qualified youth workers as well as make urgent considerations on the critical safety upgrades to the Briggs Park Pavilion Youth Centre. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement this evening. Can I please ask Ms Kelly Berry to come forward and read your statement this evening?
Good evening, everyone. At the 20 March council meeting, a question was raised regarding the spending of $7,235 on a course for a councillor. The councillor was revealed to be Councillor Rob Coles. In response, Councillor Coles offered to show his certificate of company director's course to any ratepayer. This was 29 days ago. 27 days ago, on the 22nd of March, I emailed Councillor Coles requesting a copy of the certificate. Amongst his reply, offering it to me, but not getting it, he stated, "I would hope you have some trust in me." 27 days later, I have still not seen the certificate, and any small amount of trust that I had in Councillor Coles is now non-existent. Will we ever receive a true and correct copy of the certificate to prove Councillor Coles did actually complete this course competently? This course cost ratepayers $7,235. This equates to almost 4 regular household ratepayers' rates. This is a disgusting misuse of funds if Councillor Coles did not actually complete that course. Is Councillor Coles willing to repay the Shire the full amount of the course under these circumstances? Councillor Coles' profile on the Shire website states that he is an associate of the Australian Institute of Company Directors. The Australian Institute of Company Directors does not have an associate category. Why is Councillor Coles misrepresenting this to ratepayers and voters? Finally, with the in-person voting at the Byford Library being discussed at the March 23 OCM, what is the Shire doing to protect their staff from the bullying and aggressive actions of councillors and candidates that were seen at last year's in-person polling there?
Thank you for your statement, Ms Berry.
Madam President, under Standing Orders section 10.17, I'd like to make a personal explanation.
Thank you, councillor Coles. Under 10.17, personal explanation of the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale's model local law standing orders 2002 as amended. A personal explanation. No member is to speak at any meeting of the council or committee except upon the matter before the council or committee unless it is to make a personal explanation. Any member of the council or committee who is permitted to speak under these circumstances is to confine the observations to a succinct statement relating to a specific part of the former speech which may have been misunderstood. When a member of the council or committee rises to explain, no reference is to be made to matters unnecessary for that purpose. Councillor Coles, I will approve the personal explanation.
Thank you, Madam President, and I would remind Ms Berry of the tort of defamation and the Defamation Act 2005, Division 2, Part 4.
Councillor Coles, please do not make threats to members of the public. You have been given the circumstances under which you can make your personal explanation.
I am, and that's part of the personal explanation. I would also remind that there is no parliamentary privilege in this place, so people are not exempt from defamation. 22nd of March, which is a Wednesday, 2023 at 7:40 p.m, I responded back to Ms Berry. That response was due to her email on the 22nd of March 2023 at 3:14 p.m. At that time, Kelly Berry wrote, "Hi Rob, at Monday night's meeting you said you would be willing to show your certificate of completion of the company director's course to any member of the public. I would actually like a copy of that said certificate, please. Could you please email me a copy ASAP." I then replied, so that was 22nd of March at 3:14 p.m. The same date at 4:31 p.m, I wrote, "Hi Kelly, whilst this is a rather interesting request, I'm happy to oblige. I would hope that you have some trust in me. Anyway, I have a school-based board meeting this evening and afterwards I will find said certificate. Kind regards, Rob." So that evening, some 2 hours and 59 minutes later at 7:40 p.m, "Hi Kelly, I'm happy to show you the certificate. When would you like to view the certificate? Regards, Rob." Nothing further was corresponded between me and Ms Berry in regards to the certificate from the company director's course. I have, however, helped Ms Berry for other matters that she's raised as a ratepayer. So what I would say is it's very damning and damaging to misquote things and to pick and choose what you want to say.
Coles, you have made your personal explanation. There is no further.
I would also stress that the Shire staff answered the question of the ratepayer at the 20th of March 2023. Thank you.
Councillor Coles, can you please follow direction when it is given? You are allowed the leniency to make a personal explanation covering the matters raised in the statement, not the other information that you then went into.
Sorry, Madam President, I said that the Shire officers answered her question on the 20th of March. Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for your leniency, using your words, for me to make a personal explanation to correct something that was incorrect. Thank you, Madam President.
Can I please ask Mr. Michael Van Dendel to come forward and read your statement this evening?
Sorry, Madam President, can I just please ask you as a presiding member, just make a direction to the public that them mouthing words at me, looking at me and trying to stare me down will not be tolerated. Thank you, Madam President.
Can I please remind the public gallery of the behaviour that is expected here this evening? Thank you. Can I please ask Mr. Michael Van Den Doel to please come forward and read your statement this evening?
Thank you again. It's a very short statement. It was to advise the council that we have followed direction and made a copy of the letter received from the Shire about the footpath, and information has been given, and it's been given to all the petitioners. About 100 people have now received a copy, and we are eagerly waiting.
Thank you. Can I please ask Mrs. Lee Bond to come forward and read your statement this evening? I'm sorry, Mrs. Bond, I haven't heard any comments. Can you please read your statement?
Why has Briggs Park been overlooked in favour of King Street? How much longer will the life of the dog pound be ignored? When are decent lights going to be erected on Hopkinson Road, Orton Road, Hopkinson Road, Manhattan Road, in the interest of safety? It would be a good idea to stop paying for the use of flashing a speed sign on Hopkinson Road and provide lights for the intersection. Has any council given any thought to providing special unique play areas for children, not renting into nonsense, good old-fashioned fun for children? This would, of course, take a lot of community involvement. Perhaps I don't know for too much. The amount of antisocial behaviour in this Shire is astounding, and not long now in our choice. The next big change, me and many others are interested in the pathetic excuse of claim insurance. This can be worked out for everyone's benefit, and eventually antisocial behaviour, falling down to the cost to the ratepayer, will be significantly reduced. But acting on the use of council bonds and provide something Shire can be proud of, that no other councils have. It will take a huge amount of common sense. I like the bottom of it.
Thank you, Mrs. Bond. Can I please ask Miss Pauline Holmes to come forward and read your statement this evening?
It's become clear to all who pay attention to council proceedings that a solid voting bloc of 5 has emerged since the fresh election held in October 2022. What this voting bloc shows is the length they are willing to go to in tearing our council and Shire down to feed their personal egos and agendas. The confidential information fed to Lee Bond for her to use.
Excuse me, Mrs. Bond, can you please be quiet?
Well, I want a resident to have a go at another resident by name. We need to control this meeting so that we don't provide a forum. People defaming fellows in the.
Councillor Cole, Councillor Strawtons. We allow our community to get up and have their say. You have seen here tonight, there is people that have submitted questions. They have, as long as they are respectfully presented. What is not respectfully presented?
Forum for such behaviour. Unless you.
Councillor Strawtons, can you please explain what exactly has been stated so far? I am asking you, you have called the point of order. Can you please explain?
Well, I'm to another resident and that other resident's name. And an objection by the other resident has been called out,
and you have supported the person on the platform right now to continue to cast allegations against that other resident.
With no evidence.
Councillor Strawtons, can you categorically state that there has been no Facebook posts along the lines that have been mentioned?
Sorry, sorry, Madam President, perhaps I can bring some decorum to this place. I raise a point of order, 15.4 subsection B, that offensive or insulting language has been used. Thank you.
Councillor Coles, can you please state what the offensive or insulting language that has been used is, please?
I know you probably need me to say that for the record, but I don't want to rehash what a fellow councillor has just said. But quite clearly, the allegations of someone making comments on Facebook, just bear with me while I get my notes. The second paragraph of Ms. Holmes's deputation or statement, I should say, on page 7. I'm not going to read it out because it's all there, but the allegations that are made there, I would submit unequivocally that fits within section 15.4 points of order. It is offensive and it's an assaulting what she is alleging against another ratepayer.
I'm not going to uphold the point of order, Councillor Coles.
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to move a dissent motion under section 15.6 of the standing orders.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. Can we please have a seconder for the dissent motion? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Councillor Coles, you are able to speak to your motion.
Thank you, Madam President. Quite simply, the standing orders are there. I think the fellow councillor used the term that it's the Bible. It is the guide and the rules, if you'd like to use those terms. And certainly, I would submit that section 15.4, which allows us to call out points of order, and specifically subsection B is that it's offensive or insulting language is being used. I understand the concerns raised by fellow councillors tonight. We do not want to be in this place, and I understand democracy, I understand freedom of speech, and I'm advocate for both of those things. But I do not want to be in a place where we have a slinging match and mud is thrown at fellow ratepayers. I guess we as councillors expect to be held in a higher regard, and we can have mud that is slung at us, and I know that mud has been slung at me for the last 5 years. So what I would say is let's be better than that. Let's not allow a breakdown in our community. Let's not allow ratepayers to start making accusations against each other. If there is an accusation of this nature, which I would submit is extremely serious, then there are proper standards and ways to go through that. That is to report it to the standing panel, go through the Local Government Act, or report directly to the CEO. To stand up here, and I'll use a term that people often use about me, is grandstand to try and get mud slung in a public forum is not correct. It is not right, and I don't want to be part of it.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. There is no further debate on a procedural point of order ruling. So all those in favour of the point we have before us? 2, 3, 4, 5. All those against? Motion is carried 5-2.
Madam President, can we have those votes recorded, please?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Atwell. Minute Secretary, can we please have the votes recorded? Ms. Holmes, can you please revise your statement and refrain from using a ratepayer's name? Thank you.
Another ratepayer for her use in her online attacks and other elected members is a disgrace and has gone on for far too long. Those 5 elected members who have stood on the platform have integrity, provide wrong, incorrect and misleading information to residents have no place in any representative body.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Item 4 on tonight's agenda is petitions and deputations. We have one deputation this evening. It is from Mr. and Mrs. Leanne and Stephen Schneider regarding item 10.1.1 development application for outbuilding lot 601-142 Bruns Drive, Darling Downs.
Thank you for the time to consider our statement of questions. Summary of understanding, read our attention to PA 23-94. It's your obligation as councillors to understand why we are objecting to the planning application PA 2394. We refuse multiple building applications to build exactly what is being considered for approval on lot 601-142 Bruns Drive, Darling Downs. We do not object to the neighbours having a shed. We are objecting to the placement facing north-south and being entirely outside of the building envelope. The council disapproves one resident's application multiple times and then considers approving on merit the adjoining neighbour to build a mirror image of what has been declined for us. This should not happen again, as you are causing conflict between the residents of the community and the Claire Morris estate because of the law and individual merit that you apply between applicants. Our original date for outbuilding planning approval was submitted to the Serpentine Shire on the 10th of November 2010 for the same positioning, seeking approval of north and south orientation on our property and entirely outside our building envelope, and was rejected on multiple applications. I believe it was 6 at the time. We were advised in writing by the Serpentine Council location shed to be relocated to minimise any projections beyond the building envelope. After meeting with the Senior Planning Officer Lawrence Mann on the 28th of February 2011 to discuss our building applications, and in light of this discussion, the Shire provided us with 3 options to enable our application to progress, inclusive of revising plans to build within the building envelope. According to Town Council planning laws, no merit was given to our application, tabling at council meeting and re-advertising to surrounding landowners. We received final approval on the 6th of December 2007 to build within the building envelope. We can provide copies of correspondence to show how we were treated by the Shire during this lengthy process, which took 13 months for council to approve after multiple interactions. Grounds for refusal of our applications were that the council believed the proposed outbuildings will detract from the streetscape and the visual amenity of residents and neighbouring properties, inclusive from the South Western Highway, in relation to the orientation and appearance of this development. Council should ensure that all landowners are not discriminated against and are treated equally, and ensure that the town planning laws and guidelines are applied to the planning applicant PA 23-94. development at lot 601, 142, Brums Drive, Darling Downs. We also had a discussion, phone conversation with the planning officer, Ashwin, I think his name is, top of my memory. And last week, it feels like a sweetener to us, asked us if we wanted to add to our current building, which is at maximum floor space. Feels like.
Yeah, we were offered it felt like a bit of a bribe. We were offered to come in and have a discussion to see whether the Shire could do something to benefit myself, so I wouldn't see what I'm doing, was what I felt like. And they wanted to know whether I wanted to extend my shed, and they'd be willing to talk to me in light of what's going on. So I feel that's a little bit out of character for what the council should be doing to the members. Like, I'm not asking for any special favours. I applied, was denied, and they gave me the good reasons, and it's happening again. So somebody else is applying exact same shed, same spot, everything, and you're considering to approve this shed. I want you to give this guy the shed, but I want you to understand that the trauma that you put our family through for 13 months, and not only the trauma, the loss, because not having a shed for 13 months, I was broken into by the Southwest Highway. They raided my fence and stole a brand new camper trailer because I couldn't house my own property in my shed because the Shire itself wouldn't allow this shed to be built, and it took us 13 months for this outgoing building. And it wasn't in the position we asked for. On 6 occasions we applied, and 6 occasions we were denied. So there's a little bit of conflict between us and the Shire. I hope there's no conflict between myself and my neighbour, because I have nothing against my neighbour. I would love the guy to have his shed. But I'm not here tonight to deny him of his shed. I'm here tonight to make the Shire accountable for what it's done to us for 13 months. And I believe if you approve it, unfortunately, it will create a conflict between neighbours, because I will have to walk out of my property and every day look at a shed in my neighbour's property that you denied me the rights to have. Now, I spent a lot of money building this shed, below the standard that I wanted, because the Shire encouraged me and said to me that they would not proceed any further unless I took the deal of building with inside the end. So,
our current neighbours have said in the documentation that you have this evening that our shed does impact on our own property and our alfresco area. Yes, it does, because that's where the council made us build within the building envelope. So what's good for the whole community is good for the whole community.
Thank you. Item 5 is the President's report. Good evening and welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting for April 2023. It is great to see everyone back following the Easter break, which I hope you all enjoyed with family and friends. Attention now turns towards the Shire's Anzac Day commemorations, which will be held at the Mudijong War Memorial next Tuesday. This year will see the Serpentine Jarrahdale RSL and the Shire teaming up to deliver a dawn service and traditional commemorative service. A full schedule of Anzac Day commemorations can be found on the Shire's website. In exciting news for residents of our Shire's Northern Corridor, Stage 1 works to upgrade Cargottage Road will kick off this Wednesday, the 19th of April. Stage 1 works will include road widening, surface treatment, street lighting, and the installation of crash barriers between Rowley Road and Thomas Road. The works have been funded as part of the $18 million state government election commitment and will provide long-term safety for local traffic. These important works follow other significant road projects such as the Shire's road reseal program and upgrades to the Mundijong-Cargottage Road roundabout. We understand these works will cause delays for regular commuters along Cargottage Road. Please visit the Shire's website for the latest information. Moving on, it has been wonderful to see the SJ community embrace the Shire's Shape Our Future SJ 2033 campaign over the past month. The campaign was all about engaging with our residents as we review the Shire's strategic community plan, with Shire staff and councillors attending several events, workshops and pop-up stalls in recent weeks. It was great to hear so many fresh ideas and such strong feedback from our passionate locals. This has been an exciting time for our Shire, so a big thank you to everyone who took the time to complete a survey or stop by for a chat. The engagement period closed earlier this month, and your feedback is now being reviewed as we consider the best ways to implement it into our future planning. Stay tuned to the Shire's website and social media channels for further updates on this important project. In other news, I was proud to sign the WA Local Government Association's Climate Change Declaration on behalf of Council and the Shire at a special SJ Farmers Market event last month. By signing the declaration, the Shire commits to addressing the impacts of climate change in our community. We will continue to work with local groups and residents to ensure we're doing all we can to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you, and as always, my full calendar can be viewed in the following pages. Item 6 is declarations of councillors and officers' interest. Councillor David Atwell has declared a proximatory interest in item 10.1.2, proposed road naming lot 14 Scott Road, Mundijong, and lot 1121087 Cargottage Road, Mundijong. The nature of the interest is proximatory. The extent of the interest is a part owner of the property adjacent. Councillor Atwell will leave the chambers while the item is discussed. Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Paul Martin, has declared a financial interest in item 10.5.1, status report of the CEO's KPIs for the 2022-23 financial year. As CEO, Council is assessing the performance and achievements of Mr. Martin's KPIs. Item 7 is confirmation of minutes of previous council minutes. 7.1 is the ordinary council meeting minutes held on the 20th of March 2023. Can I please have a mover for these minutes? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is there anybody opposed to these minutes? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 8 is receipt of minutes or reports and consideration of adoption of recommendations from committee meetings held since the previous council meeting, which is nil. Item 9 is motions of which notice has been given. 9.1 is notice of motion, validity of elections policy. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Mack. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Straughtons. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 9.2, notice of motion, review of standing orders local law. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Councillor Mack, are you moving the officer's recommendation or the councillor's recommendation?
The councillor's recommendation. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Can I please have a seconder for this motion? Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. I am opposed to this motion. Councillor Mack, would you like to open debate, please?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. This was simply a motion to try to open the floor to actually reviewing our council policies and standing orders. It had a lengthy review period, understanding that there is changes that are going to come at a state level as well. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't actually be looking at what is and isn't working internally. And I certainly think there are some improvements that can be made. Now, I haven't put forward a motion to actually request any of those changes, but simply to open the floor for us to review our standing orders and just put forward some ideas and proposed changes that we could be looking at in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Councillor D'Agostino, would you like to speak or reserve?
I'll reserve. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. In speaking against the motion that we have before us, I would be happy to support the alternate officer's recommendation. We have been informed, and it has been well publicised through the Local Government Amendment Bill 2023, the second tranche of changes that the government will deal with will include standardising standing orders across all local governments across the state. So with that being the case, we won't really have a choice of what our standing orders are. They will be implemented by the state government for all local governments to follow, which brings us to, if this recommendation or this resolution is supported by council, is a waste of officers' time in the short process or in the next 12 months, as it is likely to be a total waste of time. The state government will implement a standard set of standing orders across all local governments. Thank you. Is there any other councillor that would like to speak for the motion? Councillor Mack, would you like to close, please?
Thank you, Madam President. And I do take on board what you're saying about the state government local laws that are coming in, but we don't know what level they're going to go to. We don't know how standard they are. And I certainly haven't been privileged to any inside information as of what they'll be changing it to. I would think that it is important that we review all of our policies on a regular basis. And I certainly think in recent times we have seen some examples where our meeting procedures haven't gone as smoothly as they could, and would think it would be a timely point to review some of our standing orders to see how they could be improved in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. All those in favour of the motion before us? All those against? Motion is carried 4-3.
We have the votes recorded, please, Madam President.
Minute Secretary, can we please have the votes recorded? Thank you. Item 9.3, Notice of Motion, Review of Council Policy 1.1.414, Forums of Council Policy Concept Forums, Question and Answer, Agenda Forums and Workshops. I'm happy to move this motion. Can I please have a seconder? The alternate officer's recommendation. Thank you. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. In opening debate, as Councillor Mack has already stated, it is good to review our policies in a mindful time frame. Given the behaviour of councillors over the last couple of workshops and policy concept forums, it is timely that this policy is reviewed and we see if we can actually improve the way that we operate as a council for the benefit of our ratepayers. Councillor Atwell, would you like to speak or reserve?
No, I'll reserve. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councillor Duggan, would you like to speak, please?
Thanks, Madam President. This policy is viewed to be reviewed next year. Everything is put in a place for a reason for our Shire officers to look at. This will come up in its own time. I agree with you, Madam President, that our council hasn't been working efficiently at our meetings, but funnily enough, our PCFs, our question and answers forums, they all worked perfectly well up until the last couple of months. So therefore, I can't see that as such an issue with the policy concept forums, but rather it's the council, the people who are sitting at the table that need to be working together better to be able to make them effective. To me, looking at changing the policy concept forum is a bit like somebody coming in to need a haircut and you trim their beard. We need to resolve the issue, not just change for the sake of change's sake. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak for the motion? Thank you, councillors. I'm happy to take this item straight to the vote. I think it's been pretty self-explanatory. All those in favour of the motion? 3. Thank you. All those against? Motion is lost. 3-4.
And Madam President, could we have the votes recorded, please?
Minute Secretary, can we please have the votes recorded? Thank you. Item 10 is Chief Executive Officer's reports. 10.1 is Development Services reports. 10.1.1 is the development application for outbuilding lot 601142 Bruns Drive, Darling Downs. I'd like to move a motion to defer this item to a OCM into the future once the FOI process that is in play at the moment is completed. Can I please have a seconder for this motion? Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino.
Let's get the writing on the board correct, please, Madam President. To defer the item to a future
OCM.
To future OCM once the FOI process is concluded.
Yeah, that'll do.
Councillor D'Agostino, are you happy with that? Manager Governance makes a good point that potentially the mover and seconder might like to consider changing the motion to be once the outcomes of the FOI application have been provided to the applicant, because there are appeal processes and all sorts of reviews that can go on after that. If the people making the FOI application have received their information from the Shire, they can come along to a future council meeting or.
I'm happy to make those changes.
So we say defer the matter to a future council meeting once the FOI outcome has FOI application has once the Shire has responded to the FOI application. Councillor D'Agostino, happy to receive.
Is there any councillors opposed to this motion?
Sorry, Madam President, I'm not opposed per se. I was just wondering, we've had some success in the past with mediation. Is there a way that we sort of in parallel with this have some type of mediation between the applicant and the neighbours?
Madam President, maybe I could suggest that if once the applicants of the FOI process have received their information, they can have a meeting with me if they like, and they can raise any concerns at that point in time.
Thank you.
I'll ask it again. Is there any councillor that is opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.1.2, proposed road naming, lot 14 Scott Road, Mundijong, and lot 1121087 Cargottage Road, Mundijong. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Mack. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.1.3.
Madam President, you can advise Councillor Atwell.
Sorry. Councillor Atwell, the motion before council has been carried unanimously. Item 10.1.3, proposed list of names for roads, streets taken from the approved local heritage survey. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.1.4, implementation of an opt-in text message system for the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale. I'm happy to move this item. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there anybody opposed to this motion?
But I do have a question if I can. My question is going to be, what assurances do we have that the opt-in applicants are going to have their phone numbers used for the assigned purposes and not for any alternate purposes? What security framework do we have around that?
Director?
Thank you, Madam President. As the author of the report, I think I just stress part 3 of the officer recommendation, which does talk around a business operating procedure being developed. I think on behalf of the executive and the CEO, that the business operating procedure is what must be followed by staff who would be administrating a system like this. So subject to the correct BOP, that would, I feel, give confidence that the system would be correctly used as it's intended for TFBs and vehicle harvest, movement ban notification, etc.
And that would be the limit to the use of those opt-in service?
Yeah, yes.
Yes. Thank you, Madam President.
Is there any councillors opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.2 is infrastructure services reports. 10.2.1 is minutes of the Rivers Regional Council meetings held on the 16th of February 2023 and the 16th of March 2023. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Strawtons. Can I please have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.2.2, award request for tender RFT 10/2022 project manager infrastructure. I'm happy to move option 2 for this item. Can I please have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is there anybody opposed to this motion?
President, until that is on the screen. And I note the correction of the 0.3 to B.3 rather than a second 0.2 typographical error.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I will call again. Is there any councillors opposed to this motion? Thank you, Councillor Coles. As the mover, I'll open debate. Council have had this report for a number of months now, as this is the second time that it has come back to council. There have been a lot of questions asked about how often we'll use this, the cost of what it will cost us to use this to have an organisation sitting and waiting, and whether they will have the desired people at the time that we actually need them. My reasoning for moving option 2 is that the organisation that has been recommended in the officer's recommendation is actually on the preferred supplier list for Walga. So if they are what is preferred, we can actually access them through the Walga preferred supplier process when we need to have someone in place. Thank you. Councillor Atwell, would you like to speak or reserve?
No, I'll reserve. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councillor Coles?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. You make a very salient point. So if I may indulge, can I ask the director what that means if they are in fact on the Walga list as a provided or a recommended supplier? What does that mean, and what's the benefit in doing this as opposed to just going to the Walga recommended suppliers?
Director? Please share the response.
Go first, given that it's he's the director charged with delivering the project, so.
Thank you, Madam President. So the way the Walga preferred supplier portal works is there are a list of consultants or contractors that have been pre-qualified through checks and balances through a process in Walga, and then they are listed in the preferred supplier portal, which makes it easier for local governments to access them through quotations without having the need to go to tender where they're pre-qualified. So it makes the process of engaging them a bit more easier and process driven. Whereas compared to if we were to go out to open market through an RFQ or tender, which would be a longer process, and we would be taking the risk of assessing their qualifications, preliminary qualifications. So it makes it easier in that way, and it's a tested and proven process through Walga. When we engage consultants through that portal, we still have to get quotes from a number of them, and then make sure that we're still engaging the value for money consultant or supplier.
Thank you, Director.
Is there anything else in particular that you would like me to add?
I understand there's a live motion, but I guess for me, if I can ask the Director of Corporate Services, comes down to the dollar. Is there any cost savings in not awarding a tender and just going through the Wolga preferred suppliers.
Suffice to say, I wouldn't know the answer to that until we actually sought the quotes from the Wolga panel.
Councillor Coles, has that answered your question?
Sorry, thank you, Madam President. Thank both directors.
Is there any other councillor who'd like to speak for the motion?
Sorry, Madam President, I am opposed. I don't know if that was recorded, but thank you.
Well, thank you, councillor Coles. Would you like to speak against the motion then?
The only comment I'll make is this is an example of us as councillors listening to the experts. The experts are the directors. I am somewhat concerned about the fact that we are under our FT at the moment. There's staff leaving, we can't attract staff, and that's another issue. But suffice to say, we need to move forwards, and it is a key requirement of this place that we get someone in place to be able to project manage the infrastructure that we are trying to get. We've got another election coming up in 2025. That's both state and federal, and we want to make sure we've got our house in order so that we can manage effectively the projects we've got ongoing, and we can also show that both state and federal governments that we are organised, if I can use that term, and we have a project manager in place, so that if we are lucky enough to receive federal and state funds, that we have the staff in place to implement that advocacy work that we'll be doing. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Coles. Is there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? I'm happy to take this straight to the vote. All those in favour? 2, 3, 4. All those against? 2, 3. Motion is carried 4-3. Item 10.
Ask we record the votes for that, please.
Minute Secretary, can we please have the votes recorded? No, it was councillor Rich, Atwell, D'Agostino and Mack for the motion, and councillor Coles, Staunton and Duggan against. Item 10.3 is corporate services reports. 10.3.1 is confirmation of payment of creditors March 2023. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, councillor D'Agostino. Councillor Duggan, are you happy to second? Thank you.
Happy to second.
Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.3.2 is monthly financial report for February 2023. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, councillor Duggan. Councillor D'Agostino, are you happy to second? Thank you. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.3.3, arrangements for the 2023 ordinary local government elections. I am going to move option 2.
Madam President, would I please move an alternate motion for this, please?
Councillor Duggan, I have already moved option 2. I will call for a seconder for option 2, please. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, councillor Atwell. Is there anybody opposed to the motion we have before us?
Can we wait till it gets onto the screen, please, Madam President?
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Thank you. Is there anybody opposed to the motion we have before us?
I'm opposed, Madam President, and if it fails, I foreshadow the alternate motion that I've circulated earlier on this afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. In opening the debate for this item, we heard the debate from the last council meeting in regards to this item. The alternate motion that I put forward last month was lost when it went to the vote. There was a number of different reasons put forward by councillors, one of being the expense of having extra polling booths across the Shire. And I think one thing that most, if not all, councillors around the table did not raise was the consultation with our community. There has been absolutely no consultation with our community on the way that they would like to see their election in the Shire of Serpentine Jarrahdale run. We have a number of councillors that have stood on platforms of community engagement and community consultation, and yet we have absolutely no consultation that has been done with our community for this issue whatsoever. It is well known that in-person elections at local government level result in a far lower turnout than postal voting. It has been put forward that postal voting is open to tampering. The same thing can be stated for in-person elections. There is no perfect election process that is 100% foolproof. If people want to tamper with election results, they have a number of ways that they can do that. It is a responsibility of councillors that we give our community the best opportunity that they can to turn out and vote. We have a significant seniors population in our Shire, a lot of which struggle to get out to voting places. And I know that it will be said that people can still apply for a postal vote. When we have had year upon year upon year of postal votes arriving in the mail without people having to apply for them, there will be people that do not apply because they simply think that it will turn up in the mail. I am of the belief if we as a council are going to change the way that we vote, that the way that our community vote, the very least we can do is actually consult with them and ask them what they would like to see happen and how they would like to see the elections in their area run. Thank you. Councillor Atwell, would you like to speak or reserve?
Yes, thanks, Madam President. I think your points were quite salient about people's availability to be able to vote, and as in past has come forward that in-person elections are very poorly representative of what the actual community, the number in the community. And I think we should be giving every opportunity for people to vote. As was said before, the extra voting areas that are voting stations that we were actually put forward was rejected. And so I think that it's fair to say that if we're going to go that way, that postal voting, which is quite most common throughout the area, and which as of yet has not been proved to be corrupt, Also, I know we had a case of mail theft, but no corruption was actually proved from that. So I don't believe it's actually been sullied to the point where we can't use it again. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Atwell. Councillor Duggan, would you like to speak against, please?
Thanks, Madam President. So from memory, that motion that you put forward at the last OCM was lost 5-4, and I was one of the ones that voted the 5. The reason that I voted against that motion was purely because we hadn't had a chance to look at the financial implications of having increased number of polling booths available. We've been told at the PCF by our Shire officers that there's not a significant increase in cost for those additional polling booths. With that in mind, this is something that I support for the simple fact of what you were saying, that we do want to be opening up the opportunity for as many people in our Shire to be voting. And certainly community engagement is important, as I am one of the ones who is constantly on my soapbox about it. And that community engagement comes after tonight's decision when we advertise. And that is why you will notice in my alternate motion, point 8, makes specific reference to ensuring that our advertising and our ability to get the word out there about the change in the technique and the process is available to all residents via their ratepayers notifications. So for that reason, as stated previously, I'm against the current live motion, and I foreshadow the alternate motion 1033 that I put forward earlier today. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor Duggan. Is there any councillors that would like to speak for the motion? In closing, I will clarify a few points that have been raised. Yes, this item has gone to a policy concept forum. No, our officers have not given us an idea of the cost of extra in-person polling places. They cannot do that until council makes a decision either way, and they send that decision to the Western Australian Electoral Commission, and the Electoral Commission responds to the Shire of whether they can do what council's resolution is for and at what cost it would be to our community. The other point that I will clarify is, as councillor Duggan has said, she has provided an alternate motion this evening, and it does at point 8 have a communication strategy to be put forward. That strategy is not to ask our community of their opinion and their preference to the way in the voting would be conducted for the 2023 local government election. That is purely a communication strategy to tell people this is how you can vote after a council has made a decision. It in no way gives the community in Serpentine Jarrahdale the right to make a decision on the way that their local government election is conducted. We have all heard the information over the last nearly 2 years about the mail theft in Byford, which caused the fresh election in October 2022 in Byford. There has been just as many areas where in-person elections can be altered. We heard from the manager of governance when the question was asked at our last OCM, and we're told that there is no way that the Electoral Commission on the day of voting can record whether a person moves from polling booth to polling booth and fills in numerous ballot papers. It opens the door for people to try and bribe people for their votes at the polling booths. There is numerous ways that any way that we choose to vote can actually be interfered with. What is open to our community, what they are used to, what they have successfully used as a method of voting in previous elections, is postal voting. Thank you, councillors. I am quite happy to take this item to the vote.
Madam
All
President,
those in
can I
favour?
ask a question?
Councillor, debate is closed now, so we are going to the vote. Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm concerned you made some comments in your debate that aren't true. Can I ask you a question, or you won't allow that?
The debate has closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
All those in favour of the motion that we have before us? All those against? Motion is lost 2-5. Councillor Duggan, you have foreshadowed your alternate motion.
Thanks, Madam President. Certainly, the Electoral Commission are the ones who make the decision on what the cost is, and we've been given guidance by our staff that that's not a significant change. However, what our Shire officers and our CEO can give us a guide on is...
Councillor Duggan, I've asked, you've moved your motion?
Yes.
I don't have a seconder for your motion as yet. Sorry. Can I please have a seconder for the alternate motion put forward by Councillor Duggan? Thank you, Councillor D'Agostino.
Madam President, for the benefit of the gallery, could Councillor Duggan maybe give an overview of the difference from the officer recommendation for the alternative as we would normally do?
Yes.
Councillor Duggan.
So the alternate motion has got a number of different components. First of all, at point 5, there is some additional early ballot places that have been added. Serpentine Jarrahdale Civic Centre, 6 Patterson Road, Mundijong, South Ward, Clem Kentish Hall, Serpentine, 24 Wellard Street, Serpentine, South Ward, Bruno Giannati Hall, 8 Munro Street, Jarrahdale, with the opening hours being at the Serpentine Jarrahdale Library, Saturday 7th of October, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m, Saturday 14th of October, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m, Wednesday 18th of October, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m, Thursday 19th of October, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m, Thursday 20th of October, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. At the Oakford Community Hall, the pre-polling hours being Saturday 7th of October, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m, Saturday 14th of October, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Serpentine Jarrahdale Civic Centre, weekdays 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. and Saturdays 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Clem Kentish Hall, Saturday 7th of October, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m, Saturday 14th of October 2023, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. at Bruno Giannati Hall, Saturday 7th of October, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m, Saturday 14th of October, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. In addition, on point 8, the notes that a communication strategy to promote and advertise that the 2023 ordinary local government election will be a voting in-person election with the option for electors to instead receive a postal vote will be prepared for council consideration when the West Australian Electoral Commission's response is received, and request that this draft include an information sheet prepared by officers regarding the election arrangements to be provided with the 2023-24 rates notice, which is suitable for councillors and candidates to also share to promote the 2023 ordinary local government elections. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? I am opposed to parts of this motion. There is parts of it that I think, if we are to have an in-person election, do not go far enough. And I would put forward a few amendments to the motion that we have before us. The first amendment I'll put forward is for item 5, that the co-working space room at the Serpentine Jarrahdale Library at 858 Southwestern Highway, Byford, North Ward, is removed, and in its place, the Serpentine Jarrahdale recreation centre at 38 Mead Street, Byford, North Ward is put in its place. Can I please have a seconder for
Madam
this
President, can we
amendment?
just wait till we get that amendment on the screen, please? So that is under point 5 to delete the first point, co-working space, Serpentine Jarrahdale Library.
Yes.
To delete dot point 1 and replace with the Serpentine Jarrahdale Recreation Centre.
Yes.
And would that be the same then under point 6?
Yes, it would be.
And so those times proposed in Councillor Duggan's motion would be the same. You just would you're proposing to replace the co-working space with the recreation centre in both dot point 1.
I would remove the times for the Wednesday, Thursday and Friday for the 18th, 19th and 20th of October from the pre-poll.
I guess my advice, Madam President, would be whether the council wants to do each one of these in incremental bits, like whether the voting place is at the rec centre or at the co-working space. Seems like a logical amendment to consider. Whether that gets too complex by adding the changing of the times and days.
I'm happy to deal with the place and then deal with the times and days as a second amendment.
Thank you. So the Minute Secretary, can we just then change that just to be replacing the co-working space in point 5 and point 6 with the recreation centre, please?
Madam President, if I can ask a question, do we know the availability of that space, particularly on the Saturdays, because it's a very busy little area?
Madam President, I wouldn't know the availability without checking that availability. However, I would have thought that if it's the council's recreation centre managed by the YMCA, if the council resolves it wants to use it for a purpose, that might, other arrangements potentially could be made for other users that might be there in consultation with them, I would have thought, but without checking that use, I wouldn't know. Are you happy with that amendment as it reads, Madam President?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Do we have a seconder?
Can I please have a seconder for the amendment before us? Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is there anybody opposed to this amendment? Thank you, Councillor Coles. I do note in the alternate motion put forward by Councillor Duggan that the Shire administration has been removed as a place for voting, and the Serpentine Jarrahdale Civic Centre, which is this facility, has been inserted in its place, given that that will take anything to do with the election cycle away from the workplace of Shire staff in the administration office building. I think it is a wise move that we do the same for the Serpentine Jarrahdale Library area. it is a very busy area that is accessed by community, but it is still a workplace for Shire officers, and they should not have to deal with the election process as it is not part of their normal employment. Thank you. Councillor Atwell, would you like to speak or reserve?
Thank you, Madam President. I guess what strikes me at the rec centre is it's quite very well used, and there's a lot of sport goes on around the rec centre, which attracts a lot of people. So it makes it more or less more available, and it's also rather more central than the library, because, as we well know now, the current makeup of Byford is west of the railway line. So the biggest majority of the people who live in Byford are actually on the west of the railway line. So that's what I would add to that.
Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Councillor Coles, would you like to speak against, please?
Yeah, thanks, Madam President. I'm not too sure whether I'm reading a different motion or not, but Serpentine Jarrahdale Civic Centre, which I understand is here, is still there as an early polling place. So unless I'm mistaken, I'm not too sure what you're referring to in any event. The reason I would suggest that the library is more prudent as a location as opposed to the rec centre in Byford is simply because we are creatures of habit. And I say that because the fresh election that we're involved in, same thing, pre-poll at the library, and it worked particularly well. There's a room out the back. I completely reject any comments that it was interfered with staff or the goings on at the library. In actual fact, I would say it probably had a positive effect, because people that are using the library, and it is on the record that we have increased the membership of the library now that it's in Byford, subsequently to them going there to go to the library, they decided to vote. So it's a separate room. It worked particularly well for the last election. And as I said, we are creatures of habit, so we do it exactly the same. We have it as a pre-poll place. We have it on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, leading up to the election being the 18th, 19th and 20th. People are a creature of habit. Then on the day of the election, people go in person to the rec centre, again, as we did on the 23rd or 24th October 2022. To say that it inconveniences the staff, I'll reject that comment. The reality is there'll have to be a staff member, at least one staff member there, and a member of the Electoral Commission there. People have used that as a location in the past. People will know that it is a place with the advertising that will go out. It is a central place in terms of on a busy road. In fact, it's the main arterial into and out of Byford. So again, not preempting what the staff decide to do, but quite purposefully, you could have a variable message board out the front, as we did for the fresh election, and actually encourage people to come to the library, come to a facility that is owned by the Shire that we want people to use, and while they're there, they can pop in and vote. So that's why I reject the rec centre as an early voting place and rather have the library. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for the motion? Thank you, councillors. We will take this straight to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment? All those against? Motion is lost 2-5. I have a further amendment that I would like to put forward, that in section or item 4, that Kem Clentish Hall and Briano Giannetti Hall are added to number 4 as recommendations for polling places on election day, please. Yes, thank you. Can I please have a seconder for this amendment? Thank you, councillor Atwell. Is there anybody opposed to this? Thank you, councillor Duggan. Again,
Madam President, can I just remind councillor Duggan, in case she may have forgotten, that if as the mover of the motion, if you speak on any amendment you lose your rights to close debate. So just so you're aware.
thank you, councillor Duggan. Is there anybody opposed to this amendment? Thank you, councillor Coles. In opening debate for this amendment, I have a firm belief that all areas of our Shire should have the ability to access a polling booth on polling day. Serpentine and Jarrahdale hold significant population for our community. They are standalone towns within our community and should have a polling place that is open and accessible to the residents of those areas on election day. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Atwell, would you like to speak or reserve?
Oh, thank you, Madam President. I agree with what you said there. Also, I would add that to give more people the opportunity to vote on the actual election day increases the number, or giving more places for them to vote increases the number of electors that will be able to vote. I would think. I may be wrong, but it seems quite logical to me that if you've done it during the week or been leading up to that, then it would be fair to say that more people would come on the Saturday to vote as well. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Thank you, councillor Atwell. Councillor Coles.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. And I acknowledge availability is key, but also we need to weigh that up with the cost. And quite simply, looking at the figures, and I thank the director for sending out the figures. You are correct, Madam President. In Serpentine, we have 1,882 electors of the South Ward that reside in Serpentine, and in Jarrahdale there's 884, which is the second and third most. The fourth most under Byford, Cardup and Darling Downs. But what I would submit here is that those people that want to vote have the opportunity to vote early. I won't say vote early and vote often because that would be inappropriate, but they have the opportunity to vote early. So what they can do, and that's why there is access for people to vote early in Serpentine at the Clem Kentish Hall, and that is for every, the 2 Saturdays preceding the election on the 21st. And same with the Bruno Gianardi Hall in Jarrahdale. People have the opportunity to come in and vote early. So they also had the opportunity, and you took the words right out of my mouth earlier when you said postal vote. So not only do people in Jarrahdale, and in fact the whole Shire, have the opportunity to vote early, they also have the opportunity to do a postal vote. So if there's some reason that a resident of Serpentine or a resident of Jarrahdale can't access either here, which is the Shire offices on polling day, or Oakford at the hall, or at the rec centre in Byford, there's 3 options there for them, then they can do a postal vote or they can vote early. The further thing I would say is a cost to man another 2 booths on election day. I don't know what the cost would be, but that would certainly be probably 10 hours or 20 hours. There'd at least have to be a staff member and an electoral commission person there. So the concern I have, notwithstanding accessibility, is the cost factor. And I believe the accessibility has been negated with the opportunity for people to vote pre-poll in their own backyard on a Saturday in Jarrahdale and on their Saturday again in Serpentine. Interestingly enough, I would also submit that if people on a Saturday, they wanted to come here to the markets, and I would certainly implore people to come here to the markets, guess what? They come here to the markets, they walk 50 metres and they can vote. People go to Coles Shopping Centre or Woolworths, can't play favourites, Coles or Woolworths Shopping Centre on a Saturday, and guess what? They can pop in across the road to the SJ Rec Centre and vote. The comment's already been made that people play sport in this area until Kiernan Park is developed. Most people that play sport have to travel to Byford. When they travel to Byford and drop their kids off or watch sport, they can also vote next door at the rec centre. So I believe the accessibility has been negated with the reasons I've just mentioned, but the cost for those 2 locations on polling day outweighs any benefit that it may have for accessibility. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Coles. Any other councillor that'd like to speak for this amendment?
Did I miss something? But you said they could vote at the rec centre.
On polling day, the
polling
rec
day,
centre
okay.
is a
So you're
nominated
talking about only
area.
polling day.
Only polling day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak for this amendment? Thank you, councillors. We will take it to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment? Thank you. All those against? Thank you. Motion is lost 2-5.
Madam President, are we able to have these succession of votes what do you call it?
Recorded?
Recorded, please.
Yes, thank you, councillor Atwell. Minute secretary, can we please have the votes recorded? Do you want them recorded for both?
Yeah, three, I think, two.
Two. Can we, minute secretary, can we please have the votes recorded for both of the amendment votes, please?
I think we should go back too far. I think there's notice on. Representatives on council at the time to ask that question. I understand the amendments, but otherwise we're going back and back and back. I can't recall what the voting might have been.
I have the voting written down if you require it. Thank you, minute secretary. Councillor Duggan, would you like to open the debate for your item?
Thanks, Madam President. Sorry for jumping the gun before. So certainly, as I started saying previously, the Electoral Commission is responsible for giving us the cost, and we've been told by our Shire officers that that cost for increasing the number of places available is not significant. There will be a cost, but it wouldn't be significant. My greatest concern is our staff. We're already understaffed, and so I had a discussion with our officers and the CEO about how is best for us to be able to staff these requirements. We want to make voting as available as possible to as many residents as possible, but we want to be restricting the impact it has on our staff so they can get on with doing the job that we want them to do, which is looking after our community. We also want to be doing all we can to ensure we don't have a system whereby on polling day people go around to multiple different places to vote. So that's why for polling day I feel that the 3 places that have been suggested are sufficient. And with the pre-polling, we've got those places available. They're on sort of shorter hours so that then people can go in, they can do their vote, they can get their voices heard. But certainly on polling day, I was against the concept of having multiple polling areas to try and keep our democracy as honest as it possibly can be, but also to keep down our staff for the requirements that would be needed for them. For that reason, I have done everything I can to try and find that balance as far as the availability of pre-polling as well as polling places. Point 8, the addition there has been to try and ensure that the advertising is as wide and as free as possible. And as we know, Facebook is a fantastic way to be able to advertise. And so we want this material to be available for every single councillor and candidate to be able to share. So they are pushing people to come and vote. So we are getting the greatest numbers we can. So my my alternate motion has been put together to try and find a balance between pulling on our staff, pulling on the cost that it's going to be to our ratepayers, but making it available to as many residents as possible and ensuring a most democratic process that we possibly can. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Councillor D'Agostino, would you like to speak or reserve?
Reserve.
Thank you. I'm going to speak against this motion. I don't believe that the alternate motion we have in front of us makes voting in our district, in our shire, accessible to all people. I actually think it is limiting in what it does. And I don't think that an in-person vote, when you see the turnout rates for the last couple of in-person votes across the Perth metro area that have been held by various local governments, the highest percentage of votes was gained here in Serpentine Jarrahdale at 7.4%. We normally have a turnout around, or if not just a little bit higher than 30% for a postal vote. The town of Cambridge had an in-person vote for one of their wards with a turnout rate of just over 4%. The City of Swan had an in-person vote in one of their wards last year with a turnout vote of just over 2%. So it is widely known that an in-person vote at local government level will significantly reduce the voter turnout of the area. And as I stated in an earlier debate, our community have not been consulted. They have not been asked, they have not been given the opportunity to put forward what their view is and what they would like to see. This is purely councillors making a decision on what they want to see for the reasons that they want to see it. Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak for the motion?
Madam President, I would like to speak for, but I'm wondering before if I might be able to propose amendment to the motion as well.
Councillor Mack, yes.
I just wonder if we might look at requesting a point 10 and adding in that we request that the CEO request that the returning officer provide a weekly update on the number of ballots issued to candidates via email and to the CEO for publication on the Shire's website.
Ask you read it again slower, Councillor Mack, so the minute secretary can put it onto the screen.
Sorry about that.
Right, okay.
Yes, point 10, request that the CEO requests that the returning officer provide a weekly update on the number of ballots issued to candidates via email and to the CEO for publication on the Shire's website.
With that wording?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Do we have a seconder for the motion that we have, the amendment we have before us?
Can I ask you a question, please, Madam President? I'm a little bit, might be just me, but I'm a little bit bewildered as to the number of ballots issued to candidates. What exactly does that mean?
Sorry, so it's probably possibly not as clear then. So the number of ballots that have been issued, the number of the actual amount of the number of ballots be issued be made available to all the candidates. So as you would know through the electoral process, as we've all been through with the postal elections, there is a returned voter number that gets through and every elector can see that.
But just to me, to that reason, a number of ballots issued to all candidates. I mean, to me, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Sorry. But
Could there perhaps be a comma? Issued, comma.
We'll just put after put a weekly update to all candidates on the number.
And I also mentioned that at a point 10, it should be request that the CEO requests, not that requests the CEO.
Councillor Duggan, at this point in time, it is an amendment that has to be voted on, so it is structured in the right way in that sense by the minute secretary.
Councillor, Madam President, Councillor Mack, I think the officers might have helped you with some wording earlier on. Are you happy with that wording that the Manager of Governance provided early on being used at that point?
The only change I had there was the number of ballots received versus the number of ballots issued, whether the Electoral Commission can't actually do candidates, electors actually have to put their ballot back in the ballot box. So issued, I think would be more appropriate. Thank you.
Councillors, do we have a seconder for the amendment before us? Thank you, Councillor Straughtons. Is there anybody opposed to this amendment? I'm actually opposed to this amendment. Councillor Mack, would you like to open debate, please?
Thank you, Madam President. I just believe that it's just an extra security option that we can have that's put in place, as well as providing an update to candidates on the number of electors that have actually been through to voting as well. During the postal processes, we do see that an update is made on the Electoral Commission website as of to the number of returned ballots. And this would just be a way of feeding some information through to the candidates for this election on how many people have been through, and give some assurity as of to the number of ballots we should expect to see in the ballot boxes when they are counted on polling day.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Councillor Straughtons, would you like to speak or reserve?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm foreseeing the potential here for this to be feedback to the candidates to motivate them all to help communicate with the electors that would ultimately result in our residents being informed in an improved manner and having a good representation of our residents voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Straughtons. I will speak against this amendment. I have an issue with the way the amendment is actually structured. What it is asking for is a weekly update of the number of ballots issued. If we are looking at an in-person election with a postal vote component, the amount of ballots issued is of no consequence. When we have a postal vote, what is published on the Electoral Commission's website is the number of returned ballots for each locality across the Shire. So they are ballots that have been completed and have been returned for those votes to be recorded. I don't see any value that will be gained with a hybrid election process where we have in-person and postal votes for ballots issued. So that's why I can't support the amendment as it stands. Thank you. So any other councillors like to speak for the motion? Thank you, councillors. We'll take it to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment before?
Madam President, just to clarify, I think Councillor Mack's going to ask about a right of reply. On amendments, there's no right of reply on amendments.
All those in favour of the amendment we have before us? All those against? Motion is carried 5-2. Can we please have the votes recorded, Minute Secretary?
And now we'll compile that into the substantive motion. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillors, is there anybody else that would like to speak for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Mack.
Thank you, Madam President. And a couple of points that I just wanted to raise that have been mentioned around this debate. Firstly, I want to commend the alternate motion from Councillor Duggan. I think it has a good balance between protecting the integrity of the electoral process and making it accessible as we can. Let's not write off the significance of what happened in the 2021 election and the fact that it was stated by a magistrate we were under attack of a widespread campaign. We need to make this available, but we also need to protect above all else the integrity of our electoral process. Having more polling boxes potentially provides more options for them to be attacked. I think this just has a really good balance of keeping it available and keeping it accessible. I will note that it was sort of said we've heard a lot about the 2021 elections and the stolen ballots, and I agree we have heard a lot about it. But what has changed? Nothing. We now know that there is a appearance of a lacuna in the legislation whereby nobody believes it's their responsibility to investigate the actions into the conduct of an election's integrity. So I think it's incumbent that we try to protect ourselves and our interest in this, and that is that we have the right to a free and fair democracy. And I think this alternate motion provides that, and I think it will be a good option for our community. I also note that it was said that around 30% voted in our elections. It was stated it was a widespread attack on our community, and I wonder how many of those 30% were genuine votes. We don't know. The answer is we just don't know, because no significant investigation was ever done to conclude just how widespread it was. And these were the words of Magistrate Darge, not myself. That was partially to the ruling that was found in the courts. So I think we need to protect ourselves. We need to make sure that we do have a democratic process that is as protected as it can be for our ratepayers of Serpentine Jarrahdale.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. I have a question. You've quoted what the magistrate has said of widespread attack and have questioned the validity of the roughly 30% turnout rate for the 2021 election. That figure stands going back for numerous elections. Are you calling into question those elections?
Madam President, I was only in part of an investigation into one. I can only provide the facts and details of that. I have not been a part of any investigation into any of the other elections, so I think it would be inappropriate for me to comment on others, only the ones that we have seen.
Councillor Mack, you've made the statement that you call into question the validity of a 30% roughly turnout. We constantly have
point of order, Madam President. I thought we're in debate now. I asked a question of you before. You wouldn't answer it because we're in debate. The member here has just made his debate. So unless there's some inconsistencies here, can you please explain to councillors and the public your decision? Thank you.
When you asked a question, it was after the close of debate for the item that was being dealt with by council. We are not at the point of the close of debate for this item. So I have asked a question. Councillor Mack has made the statement as part of his debate that he would call into question the validity of the roughly 30% turnout for the election processes in the Shire under a postal vote system. We constantly over many years have had a 30% or over 30% turnout. And what I am asking, given his statements, is he's calling into question the validity of those previous elections, given the statement that he made.
Well, Madam President, I'd like to ask you a question then, because I've got the results going back to 2013, and once we have received a turnout of greater than 30%. In fact, in 1 year, Mr. Irvin was elected unopposed. So, again, we're just got to be careful with what comments we make during debate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. Councillor Mack, I would still like a response to the question.
As I said, Madam President, I think it would be entirely inappropriate for me to comment on election processes that I wasn't a part of an investigation into. This is the one that I was a part of an investigation into. I'm 1 from 1 in showing that there was widespread fraud. That is the information that I have. That is the information that I can go by.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Is there any other councillors?
Just ask a question. Councillor Mack stated that it was widespread fraud. Was there any actual proof of any fraud? Or was anyone actually charged with fraud?
Councillor Mack?
Thank you. Yes, there was no charges of fraud, but it was proven through the courts that there was a widespread campaign of returned ballot papers with significantly mismatched signatures on them. And we had, are they sworn affidavits? I think they were from the residents around the place who swore that they did not vote and their election ballots were returned. That was the basis of the Court of Disputed Returns and the verdict of the magistrate.
Thank you, Councillor Mack. Is there any other councillor that would like to speak against the motion? Councillor Duggan, would you like to close, please?
Thanks, Madam President. In conclusion, Madam President, I appreciate your comments, and I do recognise that our residents haven't been asked about the in-person voting option. However, I can point out that they haven't been asked if they'd prefer to do a postal option either. Unfortunately, this is one of those times that a decision has been made based on our officer's recommendation. And as much as we would like to be asking our residents, it is one that we have to work on what our officers guide us to. And I hear the constant comments about the low voter turnout. I just see that as a challenge. I think that is the way that we need to see that we need to be advertising this like crazy so that we actually do get a higher turnout. The other thing too that I find it a little difficult when we start comparing with other shires or other LGAs like the City of Cambridge is we've received our community scorecard. We received the second lowest grading of all of the LGAs that were listed there. We have a lot of unhappy residents. So I don't think that we can be comparing to other LGAs unless we're comparing to the others who happen to be around us, which we have no idea who they are. I look forward to the October 2023 elections. I look forward to doing my part as a councillor to advertise that we are doing in-person elections, and I look forward to this motion being passed. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duggan. All those in favour of the motion before us? All those against? Motion is carried 5-2. Thank you, Councillor. Can we please have the votes recorded, Minute Secretary?
And Madam President, from Councillor Duggan, we'll need a reason for the difference of the officer recommendation. And you do that.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. The reason for the differentiation is to allow for extensive community coverage and increased advertising, but with restrictions for maintaining a high level of democracy, cost, and staff requirements. Please don't make me say that again. Should be a comma there. Cost democracy, cost and staffing requirements. Thank you.
Councillor Duggan, is the wording of your reason correct?
Can we change the word denser to increased community coverage? Or higher community coverage, please? Mr. CEO, do you feel that reflects what I'm trying to say?
Councillors, it's your alternative. It's your wording.
I do appreciate any assistance.
Councillor Duggan, the word of after restrictions, is that reading the way that you want it to read?
With restrictions to maintain high level democracy.
Perhaps if I could just suggest the word managing costs, managing goes in front of costs.
Thank you.
Madam President, the Manager of Governance has reminded me that I didn't ask for a reason for the difference for item 10.2.2 award request for tender RFT project manager. So I wonder, with your indulgence, if we could go back to that and whether the mover would be happy to give a reason why option 2 was chosen and what's different to the officer recommendation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. The reason is to allow access to the Walga panel, of which the recommended tenderer is a member. Thank you, councillors. We'll move on to 10.3.4, OneCom consolidation phase progress and issues update. Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Strawtons. Councillor D'Agostino, are you happy to second? Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.4 is community engagement reports, of which there is nil. Item 10.5 is the executive services reports. 10.5.1 status report of CEO's KPIs for the 2022-23 financial year.
Madam President, I'm staying in the room as we normally would do. I'll declare the financial interest in the matter. Yes.
Can I please have a mover for this motion? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Can I have a seconder, please? You happy to second, Councillor? Thank you, Councillor Atwell. Is there anybody opposed to this motion? Motion is carried unanimously. Item 10.6 is confidential reports. This meeting is to be closed to members of the public whilst item 10.6.1 is discussed. Can I please have a mover to close the meeting to the public? Thank you, Councillor Duggan. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Mack. All those in favour? Motion is carried unanimously.
You and the team. One was financial interest.
Yep.
If it's given my review, I'd like to.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Madam President, we'll also ask the other officers to leave other than the manager of governance and the director of corporate services. So everyone else can go home. Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you.